There were moments in a man's life when the world simply stopped. For Silas Boone, that moment came on a dry Wyoming morning when a dust-covered rider handed him a letter, one written in a handwriting Silas had not seen in years. Jeremiah Walsh. His oldest friend. Silas stood in the doorway of his lonely ranch house, the wind pulling at his shirt, the sun burning down on the empty prairie. He broke the seal with stiff fingers. The message inside changed the course of his life. Jeremiah had sent him a bride, not a stranger from back east, not some desperate girl looking for a home, but a young woman named Clara May Henderson, 23, educated, quiet, and in need of safety. If Silas agreed, she would arrive on the 15th. Silas lowered the letter and stared at the horizon for a long time. He was 35 years old, with scars from the Comanche Wars, memories from bounty hunting, and a ranch barely held together after his mother's death. He had long believed his chance at companionship was gone, but the truth was simple. He was tired of the silence, tired of the empty house, tired of trying to live with ghosts. 5 days later, Clara arrived. The stagecoach stopped at Willow Creek Station, and Clara stepped out holding a carpet bag that contained everything she owned. She was pale, beautiful in a quiet way, with blue eyes that held too many memories for someone her age. She moved carefully, almost like she expected the world to punish her for breathing too loudly. "You Clara May Henderson?" Silas asked, his voice rough as gravel. She turned toward him, lifted her chin, and whispered, "Yes." Silas hadn't expected the jolt he felt looking at her. She seemed fragile, but something about her eyes told him she had survived things that would have broken others. He took her bag gently, helped her up onto the wagon, and kept his hands to himself after that. He didn't want to scare her. The ride back to the ranch was quiet. Clara sat straight as a board, hands folded tight in her lap. Silas tried not to stare, but he noticed everything. How she flinched at loud noises, how she held her breath when he shifted beside her, how she kept her feet tucked close like she was used to keeping out of someone's way. "Jeremiah said you needed a fresh start," Silas finally said. "Yes." Quick, sharp, like she wished she could take the word back. He didn't ask anything more. When they reached the ranch, Clara studied the house with careful eyes. It wasn't grand, but it was honest. Sturdy logs, a stone chimney, fields stretching in every direction. She noticed the weeds in the garden, the laundry left out too long, a broken shutter. She didn't say anything, but Silas saw the way her jaw tightened. "My mother passed 2 months ago," he said quietly. "I'm sorry," Clara replied, and he could tell she meant it. Inside, Silas showed her the rooms. "You can take my mother's room, I'll use the back one." "That isn't necessary." "It is," he said firmly but gently. "You'll want privacy." Clara nodded, but when Silas left her alone, she sank onto the bed, trembling, not from fear of him, but from fear of what she owed, what he might expect, what marriage had meant in her past. That evening she cooked supper, beans with salt pork and onions, and Silas was so surprised by the smell he didn't hide it. "This is fine cooking," he said after the first spoonful. The warmth in his voice nearly made Clara cry. They ate in silence, careful silence. A silence that held questions neither felt brave enough to ask. Later that night, Clara watched Silas step out into the cold darkness carrying a blanket. Through the window, she saw him walk toward the barn. He wasn't sleeping in the house. He was giving her space. He was giving her safety. Her throat tightened painfully. She changed into her nightgown with shaky hands and lay in the big bed alone. The house groaned around her, the wind rattled the old shutter, and the emptiness pressed in like a weight. But she wasn't afraid. Not of him. Not here. Outside, a light glowed in the barn. Silas Boone, rough, scarred, dangerous, had chosen the hard floor over sharing a roof with her on the first night. Clara pulled the quilt to her chin, eyes stinging. For the first time in years, she felt safe enough to cry. And in the darkness, she made herself a promise. She would work, she would be useful, she would cause no trouble. And she would never give Silas Boone a reason to regret taking her in. She did not know that before the night ended, Silas would learn a secret she had spent years hiding. A secret that would leave his hands shaking until dawn. Clara woke before dawn, the house dark and quiet. She dressed quickly, lit the stove, and started the fire as she had been taught years ago. Her hands moved on their own, repeating habits learned in another life, a life she prayed Silas would never ask her about. By the time the sun rose, breakfast was ready. Silas stepped into the house, hair damp from washing at the pump, shoulders tight from a night on the barn floor. He hesitated in the doorway, almost as if he feared he might frighten her. "Mornin'." His voice was low, careful. "Good morning," Clara replied softly. "Breakfast is ready." Quote, they ate in silence again, two strangers trying to figure out how to be something else. When Silas went out to work the cattle, Clara washed dishes, swept floors, and explored the house. Every room carried a touch of his mother. Old quilts, jars of dried herbs, Bible verses handwritten and tucked into picture frames. She saw a life lived with care, not cruelty. By noon, Clara began to relax. By evening, she almost felt hopeful. But everything changed on the third day, the fainting spell. It happened in the garden. Clara had bent to pull weeds when the world tilted sideways. A sharp wave of dizziness slammed into her, stealing her breath. Not now. Not here. Her knees buckled. The sky spun. Dirt rose to meet her. The last thing she heard was the wind rushing through the grass. When consciousness returned, she was being carried, strong arms around her, a deep voice saying her name over and over. "Clara, Clara, stay with me. I've got you." She panicked instantly. A man's hands on her body, helplessness, darkness, memories trying to drag her back to a locked room with footsteps in the hallway. She thrashed weakly. "No, no, please, don't!" Silas stopped instantly. He didn't tighten his hold. He didn't snap at her. He didn't force her to calm down. He stepped back, hands raised, voice soft as warm earth. "Clara! You've fainted!" "I'm not touching you now. You're safe. Look at me." She blinked hard, the world sharpening around his face, concerned, worried, but not angry, never angry. Shame flooded her. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I didn't mean to react like that." "Nothing to apologize for," he said gently. "Can you walk?" She tried. Failed. He lifted her again, but carefully this time, as if she were something breakable he refused to harm. Inside the house, he set her in a chair and knelt in front of her. His hands were shaking, like he was the one afraid. "What happened?" he asked quietly. Clara swallowed. She had spent years hiding this, hiding everything, but something about the way he looked at her made lying impossible. "I'm sick," she said. "The spells come and go, sometimes without warning." His eyes softened. "Did a doctor tell you that?" "I never had money for one." "Your husband?" Silas asked quietly. She looked away, and he understood everything. The first crack in her walls. That night, the storm rolled in fast. Black clouds, heavy wind, thunder that shook the earth. Silas came in late, soaked from checking fences. Clara brought him a towel, but her hands trembled as she held it out. He noticed. He always noticed. "You scared me today," he admitted quietly as he dried his hair. "Not because you fainted, but because I didn't know how to help." "No one ever cared to help before," she murmured. Silas froze. Then, softly, "Clara, what did he do to you?" The question cracked something inside her. "He came to my room every night," she whispered, staring at the floor. 7 years. I learned to leave my body, to go somewhere else in my mind. It was the only way to survive." Silas's jaw tightened, his hands curled into fists. She waited for anger, waited for judgment, waited for that cold, familiar disappointment, but instead he whispered, "Hoarse and aching. You survived. That makes you stronger than anyone I've ever met." Clara closed her eyes. The words felt like warm water over old bruises. "Clara, he continued softly. "I will never touch you without your permission, and I will never take what isn't freely given." She opened her eyes. Silas Boone, tall, scarred, hardened by war, looked like he was the one breaking. "Why are your hands shaking?" She whispered. "Because," he said quietly, "when you flinched away, I realized how much you've been hurt and how much I want to protect you from ever feeling that again." Her breath caught. No man had ever trembled for her. No man had ever cared that much. Outside, wind slammed against the walls. Inside, the lanterns flickered. And for the first time, Clara felt she could breathe. The blizzard. 3 days later, winter came down from the mountains like a living thing. Snow, ice, and wind that screamed against the windows. There was no escape. No town, no neighbors, no distance to hide behind. Just the two of them in a small log house while the storm tried to tear the world apart. By the second night, the silence between them had changed. No longer fear. No longer distance. Something warmer, something dangerous, something neither dared name. Silas sat near the fire, rubbing warmth into his hands. Clara mended socks, pretending she wasn't watching him. Finally, he spoke. "My mother used to say a house needs laughter to be a home. Been a long time since I heard any." Clara's throat tightened, and then, very quietly, "Clara, will you tell me something good? Something from before?" She hesitated, but then she told him about her mother teaching her to read in secret, about stolen moments with books hidden under quilts. Silas listened like every word mattered. Then he told her about the stray dog he found when he was a boy, the only creature he'd ever cried with when his father died. They talked for hours, trading memories, trading pieces of themselves, until the fire burned low and neither could pretend any more. Clara shivered and whispered, "It's so cold in the bedroom. I don't want to be alone tonight. Not for that, just warmth, just company." Silas froze, then nodded. They lay in his narrow bed, fully clothed, not touching at first. But the storm raged, and fear slowly melted. In the middle of the night, Clara whispered, "When you carried me and I panicked, I wasn't afraid of you. I was afraid of memory." Silas's voice shook as he replied, "I'll spend the rest of my life giving you new ones." She reached for his hand in the dark. He held it like he was holding something holy. Two broken souls wrapped in blankets, while the blizzard tried to tear the world down. They talked until dawn, their hands never parting, and neither knew it yet. But that night would change everything. The blizzard passed, but something inside the house had changed forever. Clara woke that morning warm, warmer than she had ever felt in her life. Silas's arm was around her waist, her back resting against his chest. For a breathless moment she lay still, waiting for panic to strike. It didn't. Instead, she felt safe, protected, held. She closed her eyes, letting herself feel it, really feel it, for the first time. When Silas stirred awake and tried to pull his arm back, embarrassed, she caught his hand quickly. "Don't," she whispered. "Please, just a little longer." He relaxed instantly, and that was the moment Clara knew she had found her home. The day everything shifted. The days that followed were peaceful in a new way. Silas still worked the land. Clara still kept the home. But their silences were no longer empty. Sometimes she caught him watching her with something soft in his eyes. Sometimes he reached for her hand without thinking. Sometimes she found herself smiling for no reason at all. Weeks passed. Then everything changed one quiet spring morning when Silas found Clara pale and dizzy again. Only this time, it wasn't fainting. Not sickness. It was something else entirely. Life. A new one. Inside her. She broke the news to him softly in their bedroom, his hands still shaking from fear he might lose her again. "Silas," she whispered, taking his large hand and guiding it to her stomach, "we're going to have a baby." His breath left him in a rush. He stared at her, at his hand, at the space beneath her heart where something new was growing. Then his face crumpled. "A baby?" His voice cracked. "Our baby?" Quote. "Yes," Clara whispered. Silas pulled her into his arms carefully, like she was more precious than anything he had ever held. He pressed his forehead to hers and laughed, shaky, breathless, unbelieving. I never thought. He swallowed hard. I never thought a man like me could deserve something this good. Clara cupped his face with both hands. You deserve every good thing, Silas Boone. And for the first time since he'd left the battlefield years ago, Silas believed it. The threat returns. But happiness in the West never lasted long. One night, the ranch dog barked, a strange warning bark Clara had never heard before. Silas rose from the bed instantly, grabbing his rifle. Clara followed him to the window. Horses. Riders. Coming fast. Her heart stopped. Samuel Morrison, the cousin of her dead husband, the man who had once tried to claim her after Edgar died, the man who believed she was his by right. And he wasn't alone. Silas didn't hesitate. Stay behind me, he said, stepping onto the porch. But Clara stepped beside him. Not behind. Never again. Morrison sneered the moment he saw her. Clara, he drawled, you think marrying this killer makes you safe? You signed a debt. You belong to me. Silas cocked his rifle. That's enough. Morrison laughed, drunk on anger. You really think she told you the truth about her past? About what she did? That woman was paid for. The rifle cracked. A bullet sliced past Morrison's ear, knocking his hat clean off. I'll warn you once, Silas said, voice steady with danger. Say her name again, and I'll bury you where you stand. The standoff shattered into gunfire. Men rushed forward. Silas dragged Clara inside. Bullets shattered windows. Jack fired from the barn. Clara grabbed the shotgun and returned fire, her belly tight with fear not for herself, but for the man she loved. Then she saw it. Morrison outside, aiming directly at Silas's back. Clara didn't think, didn't breathe. She stepped into the doorway, into the bullet's path. The shot hit her shoulder with a burning shock that nearly knocked her off her feet. Silas roared her name, fired twice, and Morrison fell into the dirt. Silas caught her before she hit the ground. Clara, Clara, stay with me. She managed a weak smile. I told you, we face everything together. A new dawn. The doctor saved her. Silas never left her side. By summer, Clara healed. By autumn, her belly grew round with life. And on a warm September evening, just as the sun painted the Wyoming sky gold and red, Clara brought their son into the world. Red-faced. Healthy. Loud. Silas cried the first time he held him, cried again when Clara whispered the baby's name. James Thomas Boone, their son, their future. Their proof that broken people could build something whole, a future worth fighting for. Later that night, when the house was quiet and their newborn slept against her chest, Silas sat beside her on the bed and brushed a tear from her cheek. What are you thinking, Clara? He whispered. She leaned into him, heart full. That I never knew life could be this good, she said. Not after everything. Silas kissed her forehead gently. Then we'll spend every day making it better. Outside, the prairie stretched beneath a sky full of stars. Inside, a family held each other close. No longer haunted. No longer running. No longer broken. Just Silas. Just Clara. Just James. A family built not from fear or obligation, but from fierce, stubborn love. And as the wind whispered through the grass, Clara knew one thing for certain. She had finally found her forever home.